Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. Secretary, will you please call roll?
Assemblymember Cole.
Here.
Assemblymember Dickman.
Here.
Edgeworth.
Present.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Hibbets.
Here.
Howdigi. Miller.
Here.
Monroe Moreno. Moore.
Here.
Nadeem.
Present.
Chair Mosca.
Thank you. Will you please mark Assembly Members Howdigi, Monroe Moreno excused, and will you please mark Chair Mosca here when she arrives? For those of us in the audience in Carson City and those joining by video conference in Las Vegas and listening over the internet, I will be filling in as chair today for our meeting. I want to remind everyone to please silence their electronic devices. If you wish to testify today, please sign in at the door and give your business information to the committee secretary. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state and spell your name and state any affiliation for the record. There are hard copies of the meeting materials available for members of the public. Members of the public may also access electronic copies of the materials on the Nevada Legislature's website. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee 24 hours after the meeting. I also want to remind us that we may not always agree. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions. Committee members will also be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. We have 2 hearings today, and I want to take them out of order. So today we'll be hearing Assembly Bill 262. This measure revises provisions relating to elections. I will be presenting, so we will just take a moment for me to go down there and hand over chairing to Assemblymember Miller. Good afternoon, members of the Legislative Operations and Elections Committee. My name is Assembly Member Cecilia Gonzalez, and I represent Assembly District 16. Assembly Bill 262 is a recommendation from the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. I had the pleasure of serving on this interim committee along several of my colleagues on this committee, including Chair Mosca and Assembly Members Dickman, Hibbets, and Miller. During the interim, we heard from several Sorry, I just wanted to double check it was the correct bill. During the interim, we heard from several county clerks in the Office of the Secretary of State about the challenges in recruiting temporary election staff. This bill seeks to address some of those concerns and aims to increase the number of election workers for our future elections. The bill has 2 primary changes. First, it allows poll workers to serve as volunteer poll workers without pay. This includes student trainees, voting board officers, county counting board officers, and election board officers. This bill does not require poll workers to work without pay. They are still entitled to the compensation. It simply provides an option for poll workers to elect not to receive compensation. For example, if they are living on a fixed income or they're worried about additional income affecting their tax bracket. Retiree accounts for a large percentage of poll workers' positions across the state. They are the ideal candidates because they have the time and flexibility to work an irregular schedule. However, many are living on a fixed income and do not want to supplement their income to subject them to higher taxes. Assembly Bill 261 seeks to encourage more retirees to apply to become poll workers by allowing them to opt out of compensation. Apologies, 262. The option to work as a volunteer poll worker may also benefit high school and college students who would like to volunteer for hours to satisfy requirements for graduation or other programs such as the National Honor Society. Again, this is an option, not a requirement. Second, AB 262 repeals provisions prohibiting a person previously convicted of a felony involving theft or fraud from serving as a field registrar or working as a voter registration agency. This change is in line with other laws that has restored a person's civil rights once they've paid their debt to society. In Nevada, previously incarcerated people who have completed their sentences and are released from prison or discharged from probation and parole already have their right to vote restored, as well as their rights to serve on a jury. This bill will also restore their right to work in the field of registrar or for a voter registrar agency if their conviction involving in their previous conviction involving theft or fraud. Lastly, I would like to mention that this bill also amends the Las Vegas Charter, the Airport Authority Act for Battle Mountain, and the Airport Authority Act for Carson City to make conforming changes to allow an officer appointed for certain special election to choose to work as a volunteer without compensation. And with that, I will take any questions that the committee may have.
Committee members, any questions? I don't see any questions, so, Assemblymember Cole?
I'll just ask a real quick question. So I know you were talking about, a person who has been convicted of a felony having, served their time and done the probation and all of that, and their rights were restored. So by striking this, does that mean that any person convicted of a felony, regardless of the theft or fraud, would have done those things and had their rights restored? Or do you know what I mean? It's like, is there ever a chance where somebody would be convicted of a felony, but their rights weren't restored?
That's a good question. So Celia Gonzalez, for the record, that is definitely something that I can get the answer to for you. I don't have the answer to that at this time.
All right, not seeing any additional questions at this time, I will move into testimony in support of Assembly Bill 262. So anyone that would like to testify, please remember to state your name and spell it so we have it correct for the record. We also ask that you limit your testimony to 2 minutes each. And with that, we will start here first in Carson City.
Good afternoon, Assembly members. For the record, my name is Ryan Vortish. That's R-Y-A-N, last name V-O-R-T-I-S-C-H. And I am the Northern Nevada Democracy Coordinator of Silver State Voices. I'm here to testify in strong support of AB 262 on behalf of my organization and the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. Firstly, we'd like to thank the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections for bringing forward this important piece of legislation. There has been an ongoing shortage of election workers across Nevada, which has a serious impact on Nevadans' access to the polls. AB 262 offers a strong solution to this problem by increasing opportunities for folks in our community to volunteer their time to ensure an efficient, accessible election process. A significant percentage of poll workers are retirees, and countless retirees are former government employees within our state, many of whom likely receive PERS retirement benefits. Even though these positions are temporary and considered a form of paid volunteerism, poll workers are still technically employed by the state. As a result, our PERS-enrolled retired election workers are limited in how long they can work before they risk losing their hard-earned retirement benefits. Thus, even if they are interested and available to work for multiple election cycles in 1 year, they are often limited in the number of shifts they can work, ultimately requiring further poll worker recruitment efforts regardless of the interest pool. Giving election workers the option to volunteer without pay would both protect these retirees' benefits and create an opportunity for greater institutional knowledge and retention among those running our elections. Additionally, we appreciate that AB 262 expands employment opportunities at voter registration agencies and for field registrar positions by removing prohibitions against previously incarcerated applicants. At SSV, we have worked with many formerly incarcerated members who want to be involved in the civic engagement process by registering their community members to vote, but are not able to do so. Nobody should continue to be punished for a sentence they have already served, and we must support initiatives that make reintegration into society an easier process. We urge your support in voting for AB 262. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Willett. That's JenniferWilletT, and I am the Senior Campaign Manager at All Voting is Local Action Nevada, an organization that advocates for policies and legislative priorities that expand voter access. And we also urge you to support AB 262. The key aspect of AB 262 that we support is allowing election workers to volunteer for their roles. I can add that through my work as an election protection volunteer that I've met many poll workers, I've met many people that want to be poll workers, and a chunk of them want to just volunteer and not be paid for a variety of reasons. We also strongly support removing restrictions on people with felony convictions who wish to serve as poll workers or work for voter registration organizations. We believe these individuals have served their time, should be reintegrated into society, and allowed to engage civically on a higher level if they choose. They should not continue to face barriers that prevent them from participating in civic life. Our state faces a chronic shortage of poll workers who are essential to a functional democracy. It is crucial that we make the process of becoming a poll worker as accessible and open as possible. So for these reasons, we urge you to support AB 262.
Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Eric Jeng, ERICJENG. I'm the Executive Director of 1APIA Nevada, advocating for our Asian American and Pacific Islander community here in Nevada. One of my job and my favorite thing to do is civic engagement. We work very hard to encourage our community to participate in the process, and any bills, any efforts here in this committee that expand access and make it easier for people to participate in the process is something we're in full support of, and that we would love to bring in more community members. So these two fixes, I think that fits that align with our values. So we're here to encourage the support. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in support? Is there anyone in Las Vegas that would like to testify in support? Are you approaching in support?
No.
Okay, we're still in support right now. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 262, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Denise Bolaños Heredia, BOLANOSHEREDIA, and I'm the Associate Director of Return Strong Nevada. We support AB 262 because it recognizes that formerly incarcerated people are capable of rehabilitation, and our communities are stronger when we allow people to fully participate in society. Reentry is not just about release, it's about rebuilding trust and being given the opportunity to contribute. People who have served their time shouldn't be shut out from meaningful civic engagement, and we shouldn't be making it harder for them to succeed. If we believe in rehabilitation, we must also believe in providing the opportunities to prove it. This bill affirms that those who have demonstrated personal growth deserve a second chance to engage in their communities. By supporting this bill, we're not just helping individuals, we're strengthening families, workplaces, and neighborhoods. We urge you to support this bill and recognize that true rehabilitation requires not just personal effort, but a society that's willing to let people move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Yesenia Moya, Yesenia Moya. I'm a community educator, organizer, and artist. I'm here today in strong support of AB 262 because expanding access to civic participation is a necessary step toward a more just and inclusive democracy. Nevada has faced election worker shortages in recent years, as put up forth by the presentation, and has put a strain on our electoral process. AB 262 offers a common sense solution by allowing more community members, specifically those who have been formerly incarcerated, to step up and serve. There is no reason to exclude people who have served their time and regained their voting rights. I've seen firsthand the profound impact that engaging in civic life can have. In July and August of 2019, I proudly registered some of the first Nevadans with felony convictions to vote. These were my homies, my loved ones, people who for the first time were stepping into their political power. I know this because I have lived it too. In October of 2016, I became a U.S. citizen, and the first thing that I did was register to vote. I asked, and since then, I have dedicated my life to organizing and empowering my community because I know what it means to live in a place where your civil rights are denied. I carry that understanding with me, and I empathize deeply with those who have been disenfranchised. This bill is about recognizing the full humanity of system-impacted individuals and providing meaningful opportunities for them to serve and be in community. Formerly incarcerated Nevadans deserve the chance to give back, engage in civic life, and support their communities. By barring them from serving as poll workers, we perpetuate cycles of exclusion and disenfranchisement that serve no public good. This bill strengthens our democracy by helping election departments address and bring a broader and more diverse group of poll workers into the process, therefore affirming that all Nevadans, regardless of their past, deserve the opportunity to fully participate. I urge you to support AB 262. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller?
Hello, greetings, committee and chair. My name is Jagada Chambers, JAGADACHAMBERS. I'm just calling in support of Assembly Bill 262. I've been blessed to spearhead the effort of engaging formerly incarcerated folks to vote in our state, and I know that this legislation is pivotal in substantiating that. One of the premier hurdles that we face is folks just not believing it's real and that they can, and that there won't be any legal ramifications if they do participate. Allowing our folks to get immersed in the behind the scenes of it is going to do wonders for folks that have been in prison, that who are home now, to be able to engage safely and soundly in our civic engagement. And I know firsthand that this will impact participation, as in registering to vote, in grand numbers. Thank you for even having the bill come out of the interim, and I hope that the committee is able to support it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Paula Luna, Paulaluna, and I'm the Deputy Director of Battleborn Progress. And we're just calling in support and just want to ditto everything that's been said by our partners before us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next caller?
If you recently joined the call and would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 262, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no additional callers for support at this time.
Thank you so much. Then I will go ahead and open it up for opposition testimony. Anyone wishing to oppose Assembly Bill 262 will begin first here in Carson City. Not seeing anyone. Is there anyone there in Las Vegas that would like to oppose 262? Also not seeing anyone approach. Broadcasting, will you please open the lines?
To testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 262, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Oscar Williams, OSCAR, WILLIAMS from Reno, Nevada. I'm opposed to AB 262. We have a right to have skilled and competent workers in our elections offices. Hiring volunteers goes against that. If you really want to hire people and retain them, you give them higher pay. Why aren't we talking about increasing the pay? A lot of seniors work the polls. We could offer them maybe 6-hour shifts. They could work a double shift if they're up to it, but accommodate them with shorter shifts. I think you'll clear up the alleged election worker shortage, which I doubt is really there. There are a lot of people that want to work, but there are a lot of regulations and things like I suggested that are not being pursued that would naturally increase the interest that people have in working the elections. Our elections are also a sacred thing. The requirement of propriety, which we might expect from a judge, particularly a federal judge, we require the same from our registrar of voters office or clerks in the conduct of elections. I appreciate that there are people who have second chances. I support second chances, but I also believe in the sanctity and purity of our elections, and I think we want the people with the highest integrity in those positions. Also, this bill creates special and local legislation that is innately prohibited by the Nevada Constitution, Article 4, Section 20, which basically says shall not pass local or special laws that affect the regulation of city and county and township races and so on. So I think there's a constitutional violation that is built into this. I encourage you to vote no on this passage and amendments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellen Gifford, ELLENGIFFFORD. AB 262 seeks to remove NRS 2935045, Section 3, which reads in part, a voter registration agency shall not knowingly employ a person whose duties will include the registration of voters if the person has been convicted of a felony involving theft or fraud. It also seeks to remove a sentence from NRS 293505 that reads, the county clerk shall not knowingly appoint any person as a field registrar who has been convicted of a felony involving theft or fraud. This testimony proposes that AB 262 may contradict United States federal code and therefore be unconstitutional. Federal code addresses the implementation of voter registration agencies, stating that each state and the Secretary of Defense will jointly develop and implement procedures for persons to apply to register to vote at a voter registration agency. NRS 293504, Section 5 confirms that the Secretary of State shall cooperate with the Secretary of Defense to develop and carry out procedures to enable persons in this state to apply to pre-register or register to vote at recruitment offices of the United States Armed Forces, which serve as a voter registration agency. This bill should move no further until cooperation with the Secretary of Defense has been fulfilled and it has been determined whether or not its intent is unconstitutional. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Broadcasting, next caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Iris Stone, and I oppose AB 262. First, the bill eliminates the existing prohibition and penalty for convicted felons to work in voter registration agencies. It also eliminates the prohibition for convicted felons to be field registrars. This bill does not refer to the fact that prisoners have been reinstated after conviction. It doesn't say that anywhere in the bill. This is extremely questionable, and any hearing on this bill must investigate the motivation behind such a removal. Clearly, this bill does not instill voter confidence in Nevada's election process. As a matter of fact, I would argue the opposite. Secondly, it opens up the opportunity for people to become a poll worker without compensation. To date, the county has always paid the poll workers. This would potentially negatively impact the ability for the county to hire people to work in the election, thereby risking timely and accurate election results. Again, this is not a good move for voter confidence in elections. Lastly, this raises the question about prisoners working in a voter registration agency. Since we allow prisoners to vote as of 2023, does this open up the possibility for them to work at prison polling locations for no compensation? This is not how we want the election operations to evolve. I urge you to withdraw all the proposed modifications. Thank you for your time.
Ma'am, are you still there?
Yes.
Could you, when you stated your name, you didn't spell it. Could you spell it for us so we'd have it for the record, please?
Oh, my apologies. I thought you knew.
It's difficult
Iris,
to remember.
I-R-I-S. Okay, no problem. Iris, I-R-I-S. Stone, S-T-O-N-E.
Okay, thank
in
you.
Las Vegas.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Chair, we have no additional callers in opposition at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Then I'm going to go ahead and close testimony in opposition. I'm also going to hand the gavel back to Chair Mosca.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member Miller. It is true, you never get to leave ledge up, so thank you. We will continue to neutral. Anyone here in Carson City for neutral? We will go down to Las Vegas. Anyone in Las Vegas here for neutral? And AVH, we will open the phone lines for neutral, please.
To testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 262, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon. This is Oscar Williams. I already spelled my name in my prior comments. There is a Nevada Supreme Court case related to the rights of cities and counties to regulate their business and elections and whatnot.
Sir, I'm sorry, Oscar?
Yes.
Did you already testify? Well, the rules of the committee is that you can only testify either in support or opposition. So.
Oh, darn it. I didn't know that. I'm so sorry. I didn't know.
That's okay. So
I'll take it all back. Thank you. I'm ready for AGR 7 though. I'll get you that one.
We'll be here. Thank you so much.
Chair, we have no additional callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Vice Chair Gonzalez, would you like to make any closing remarks? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to address Assemblymember Cole's question. Yes, when you are released from incarceration, whether that's NDOC, probation, or parole, your rights are fully restored. So there wouldn't be a situation. I knew that, but I wasn't here when the bill was drafted, and so you caught me on the spot there. So I just wanted to address that. And I do really believe this bill will help our elections and help with the recruitment of poll workers. And so I really look forward to your support. Thank you all so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Vice Chair Gonzalez. I want to also thank you for chairing in my absence. And with that, I will close the hearing on AB 262. Okay, so we are ready. I see Assemblymember Watts here, so we will officially open the hearing on Assembly Joint Resolution 7. The measure proposes to amend the Nevada Constitution to revise provisions relating to the compensation of certain elected officers. Thank you, Assemblymember Watts, and when you are ready, you may begin.
Thank you very much, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I am Howard Watts. I represent Assembly District 15, right in the heart of Clark County, and it's my pleasure to present Assembly Joint Resolution Number 7 for your consideration today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the issues that led me to bring this resolution forward. Then I will explain what the resolution would do. I'll provide a little bit of closing context, and then I'm glad to take any questions that members of the committee may have. So currently, the pay and benefits for members of the legislature as well as constitutional officers are set by law. They're set by us. That creates a problem. Any attempts to increase or change pay or benefits, I think, can rightly be seen as self-serving or self-dealing. It also creates a problem with making sure that compensation and benefits align with the duties of these positions. Because who wants to be voting to increase their own pay or benefits? We know that creates political issues. We also know that there's political dynamics between members of the legislature and constitutional officers. We're all elected in political positions. And frankly, I don't think those decisions should be made based on politics and personalities. They should be made based on what makes the most sense, right? What meets the duties of the job. Additionally, we know that times are changing. You know, with the increase of technology, our jobs, our responsibilities, the amount of time that we're kind of on as legislators is changing. But pay and compensation is not. Legislative pay has been adjusted 7 times in the last 80 years. Legislative retirement was last updated in 1985, and legislative health care is the same as it was in 1981. So the systems that we have in place today are about 40 years old. That said, there have been attempts to look at these systems and propose changes. There was, in 1988, a Blue Ribbon Commission was recommended to suggest changes to improve the legislature. A lot of their recommendations were not related to pay, they were related to the process, and many of those were actually adopted. However, they made, I believe, 4 changes related to compensation and benefits, including increasing the pay that legislators would receive up to $12,000 for the session. None of those recommendations were adopted. Later in 1995, we created by statute a review committee to look at compensation for legislators. It made, I believe, 4 different recommendations. None of those were adopted. And so the current system that we have, frankly, I think is broken. And I believe that it's inappropriate because we have an alternative available. So we should not have legislators setting their own pay. I think that it is both politically and practically a poor way of doing things. So what Assembly Joint Resolution does, it addresses that by putting the power to set pay and benefits for these state officials in the hands of an independent body, an independent commission. This is actually based heavily on Assembly Joint Resolution 10, which was introduced and passed in by the 2015 legislature. I know we have one member of the committee who was part of the 2015 legislature and who voted for Assembly Joint Resolution 10. It was introduced by and sponsored by my Republican colleagues at the time, and I want to applaud them for their work because I feel it was a very good piece of legislation. This independent body would set the pay and benefits for the legislature and constitutional officers. It would be made up of 7 members appointed by the governor that provide expertise from different sectors that really are experts in issues of compensation. We have representatives who have an expertise in public employee compensation. Then we have the private sector, both through nonprofit as well as for-profit businesses, and then representation from labor as well as the general public, in order to ensure that there's no self-dealing or nepotism. Elected officials, lobbyists, and their immediate family are not allowed to serve as members of the commission. And ultimately, the goal of this is to take the politics out of the process and ensure that legislators are not setting their own pay. This commission would develop an initial pay schedule. After that, and I want to be clear about one thing. There is no directive to either raise or lower pay for any of these officials. Once this commission was established, they would set a schedule. After that, they could adjust it up or down by up to 15%. That just provides some stability and predictability on a going forward basis, while still giving the commission the ability to make adjustments over time as they see fit. And the other thing that I think is important to note is that as a constitutional amendment, the final decision on whether to go in this direction would be up to the people. This is a growing trend. I think members of this committee received some updates from the National Conference of State Legislatures, who's indicated that states are increasingly looking at independent bodies to take on this responsibility and to move away from having it be set by legislators themselves. I looked at NCSL data. They say 23 states currently use some form of pay commission. That is more than states that use the legislature to set their pay. 21 states are currently in that category. Also, looking at that data, it still included Colorado in a different category. They have since adopted a pay commission, so I think it's now up to 24. I believe New Mexico and Virginia are also considering commissions. So this is something, again, that has been looked at and adopted across the country. Red or blue states does not matter. And I think that ultimately the goal, again, is to come up with a more fair and impartial process to determine these issues. So I'll walk you briefly through the joint resolution itself. So this would amend the Nevada State Constitution and add Section 33A. This section would require the legislature to provide by law for a citizens' commission on compensation. That commission would consist of 7 members appointed by the governor with diverse personal and professional interests, and in various geographical areas of the state, we want to have diverse representation. And they specifically must include a member with expertise in public compensation, recommended by the Public Employees Retirement Board, 1 member who represents a nonprofit public interest organization, 1 member who represents the general public, 2 members who represent the interests of business in the state, and 2 members who have experience as officers or members of a labor organization in this state and are recommended by a labor organization in this state. Every member must be a resident and, again, must not be a state officer, public employee, or lobbyist, or immediate family of any of those individuals. The term of a member of the commission is 4 years, staggered initially to make sure that there's some variance in the membership. Subsection 5 does allow the governor to remove a member of the commission, but only essentially for incompetence or complete failure to perform their duties. Subsection 6 requires that a chair be elected. Subsection 7 allows them to receive traditional compensation for service on it. Subsection 8 discusses the responsibilities of the commission. And that's on page 3, line 6. So the commission shall study the relationship of salaries and benefits to the duties of the members of the legislature, the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, state treasurer, state controller, and attorney general. They'll compare the salaries and benefits of those elected officials to the salaries and benefits of persons who are employed by public or private employers with similar qualifications or responsibilities. In other words, looking to see what some of the comparable positions are and duties. They will then fix or set the salaries and benefits of those positions, and then carry out any other duties that we may additionally provide in law. Subsection 9, that's what I discussed before, limiting changes to 15% increase or decrease after the initial schedule is set. So just to be clear how this would work, if this were to be established, they would conduct their study, they would set a pay schedule essentially, and once that's set, there's a 15% variance allowed, one direction or the other moving forward. The commission would file its first schedule of salaries and benefits on January 1st, 2029, and then would file updated schedules on January 1st of each odd-numbered year after. Then it discusses in the rest of subsection 10 when those become effective. Subsection 11 essentially would require that whatever schedule is developed by this commission, the legislature must provide funding for. Subsection 12 indicates that before filing a schedule, they must hold at least 4 public meetings to solicit feedback. So again, this is a public body. We want them to hold public meetings to gather feedback, including on when they have a draft proposal put forward in order to get comments and make any changes based on that feedback. And finally, subsection 13 requires that the copy of the schedule adopted by this commission be filed with the Secretary of State. The other section just makes conforming changes to ensure that that the independent commission has full discretion over compensation matters. And then Section 9 of the Constitution is repealed, which specifically delegates the power to set compensation to the legislature, because we are now redelegating that authority to this independent commission. So again, that is what this joint resolution seeks to do. I see it as a piece of good governance reform, and I hope that I can count on this committee's support. With that, I'll conclude my presentation, and I'm glad to take any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Assemblymember Watts. We have a few questions. We'll start with Assemblymember Moore.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I do have a question in regards to what other states are doing. I know that you mentioned there's 24 states that have now some form of compensation commission. I'm curious to know if in those states the governor also appoints this commission.
Thank you for that question. Howard Watts for the record. The short answer is every single state is different. Every state that sets their compensation, even if it's set by the legislature, there are different rules and guardrails put into place. Same with commissions. Just for your awareness, some commissions are more advisory, so they provide information and then it goes back to the legislature to determine. Some commissions have what I would call partial authority, so they have the ability to set the salary and compensation, and the legislature does retain the ability to potentially overturn it. And then some are fully independent. And then the makeups of these vary from state to state, but are all generally aimed at trying to have diverse representation in order to get all the different perspectives on what is appropriate. Most of the commissions, but not all, are governor appointed.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the makeup of the commission, I appreciate that there is one member who represents the general public. I believe in commissions, general public, community members should have a say. But looking at the makeup of the different members of the membership of this commission, how did you arrive to this?
Thank you for that question. Howard Watts for the record. So the membership listed here is almost identical to the membership that was contemplated in Assembly Joint Resolution 10 of the 2015 session. I thought that was a good place to start. One thing that we did was just simplify. There were two sections related to members representing business interests, so we just combined that to say 2 members representing business interests in the state. Otherwise, the membership is identical to the legislation that was considered and passed by this body in 2015. So that's how it was arrived at. I guess I would just add as a comment, you know, it's 10 years later, we're looking at this. So if folks do have questions or suggestions, and it's something that we can all come together around, I'm glad to accept any feedback.
Thank you. Next, Assemblymember Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about the public hearings that are held. In reading the bill, it just says 4 public hearings. It doesn't say where those hearings have to be held. I personally would like to see a slight amendment to say that there has to be at least some separation, perhaps here and in Las Vegas and maybe Elko, so that we can spread it out so that more constituents of ours have a say in the process. I guess that's more of a comment than a question, but hopefully, my question is, do you agree with me, sir?
Thank you for the question. Howard Watts for the record. Yes, I do. So one thing I do want to note is that this would require the legislature to pass additional legislation. We would be constitutionally required at that point, but we could flesh some of those things out in statute. However, I think the ensuring that there's geographical representation and access to those meetings makes a lot of sense. And I think including language to that effect in this amendment in this resolution would be completely acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Miller.
Thank you. Just in response to the question, during redistricting, which I also chaired during that time, it's part of the standard to ensure that all Nevadans have access to us. We did have public physical hearings in Clark, in Washoe. I went to Fallon, so I assume that would also be the standard with this as well, to make sure that we're reaching different geographical areas as well as communities.
Thank you. Assemblymember Dickman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for doing this. I have to admit, I did not remember we did this. So you've obviously done a lot of research. Did HR 10 not pass in 17 out of the legislature? Is that what, because I don't recall it being on the ballot.
Thank you for that question, Assemblymember Dickman. Howard Watts for the record. That is correct. So Assembly Joint Resolution 10 was introduced by the 2015 legislature. It passed both houses with bipartisan support, strong bipartisan support. It was, I don't believe, brought up for a vote during the 2017 session, and so it did not end up on the 2018 ballot.
Thank you. I think this is a really good solution because everyone's afraid to look at their own pay, which makes sense. So anyway, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Assemblymember Nadeem.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. And can you kindly... Okay. Okay. Can you kindly let us know what kind of commissions New Mexico and Virginia are considering this year?
Thank you for that question. Howard Watts for the record. I do not have that information with me right now, but I'd be glad to provide it as a follow-up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember. We will provide that to the committee. Assemblymember Cole.
Hopefully you can hear me. So my question is the timing of how this works, and I think I read it 4 different times, and I'm still not quite sure. But it seems to me that the publishing of the pay, the salaries, happens in January. Is it the intent that the effect of that pay happens the next February, like the next month, or is it the following? Because I know that when we did our disclosures and whatnot, we had to say what we anticipated our pay was gonna be, and so just curious.
That's a great question. Thank you for that, Assemblymember Cole. Howard Watts for the record. Let me start at the very beginning of where we're at today, and then try and walk through the schedule. And if I'll do it briefly, and then if you have any additional questions, I'll let you know. But this also hopefully will be for the benefit of the public as well. So any constitutional amendment has to pass the legislature twice in identical form. So if we do pass this joint resolution this year, it will come back to the legislature in 2027. If it passes then, it will go onto the ballot in 2028. And if it was approved by the voters in November 2028, the commission would be established. So this has the first schedule would be filed not later than January 1st, 2029. I'm now realizing that we probably need an additional year to make that happen. So we're probably going to need to tweak that. We want to get it up and running so that they can review everything. I think the goal is, and this is odd numbered years, so we're going to probably have to adjust that a couple years, because the goal is the recommendations are finalized and come forward to us as a legislature, but as the budget is being built. Because while we will be constitutionally required to fund this, we still have to build our budget. And so the timing is designed to ensure that we have all of that information so that we can incorporate it as we're building the budget. And that would be on a going forward basis for it looks like for the next biennium, for the next 2 following fiscal years. So that's my understanding of how the timing would work, and good catch. So, and while I have the opportunity, I'll just note this bill was pre-filed. I am very grateful to the bipartisan support I got from both houses of the legislature. But since we're going to have to make some tweaks, if anyone else would like to be added, let me know. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Watts. I believe this is our last question. Members, if anyone else has a question, please let me know. Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for this presentation. I've been getting some emails about this piece of legislation, so I just wanted to clarify on the record for the public, this commission is just going to be looking at our pay. It's not going to be addressing the nature of how we operate in the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Howard Watts for the record. That is correct. This would not change anything about the 120-day biennial nature of our legislature. And again, also, this is not, I just want to make it clear, this is not about saying we should increase our pay. It's about a system that we have that functionally does not work and is also politically problematic. And I don't think those decisions should be within the legislature's hands. And so this puts that in the hands of an independent body to decide. But it does not have any impact on any other aspect of how the legislature operates.
Thank you. Assemblymember Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, and I could probably ask this of any legislator, but you're the one at the table right now representing the bill. It's interesting because I know in Education Committee today, there was a similar bill, but that was a more direct request to increase salaries for school board trustees. And it's my understanding that it was based on the idea that this is a limiting factor for individuals who would want to step forward to run for public office here in Nevada. So in your experience, have there been times or occasions where, or do you believe that this is a restrictive issue when it comes to more accessibility to have more people that would be interested in running for public office, or the legislature specifically?
Thank you for that question, Assemblymember Miller. Howard Watts for the record. Certainly, there have been issues that have been raised with regards to the ability to recruit and retain folks in these positions, not just with compensation, but also with benefits. I know folks have a wide range of healthcare coverage providers, and there was a measure that was introduced last session related to healthcare coverage for legislators. It ultimately did not move forward. So I'm really proud of our legislature. It is extremely diverse. And so I want to be really careful in saying that I actually think that we're doing a tremendous job of getting people from a lot of different backgrounds to serve in the legislature. However, I think both you and I have seen a tremendous amount of turnover during our tenures in the legislature. In the Natural Resources Committee, I learned during the first meeting that I am now the most senior member on that committee, and so tied with Assemblymember Hansen. So I've heard from some of our colleagues that have left that some of these issues are a factor in making some of those decisions. So again, we're not saying one way or other what to do about it, but I do think that it is something that has come up over time.
Okay, thank you so much, and imagine being one of 4 left on your 5th term period, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Assembly members. I mean, that's why you can jump in and chair when you're not the chair, vice chair.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Assemblymember Watts. Seeing no other questions from committee members, we will move on to support for AJR 7. We'll remind you as people are coming to the table, each person has 2 minutes. I will be timing. Please do say and spell your name for the record. Just know I don't start my timer until after you've spelled your name, so you're going to get your whole 2 minutes. And members of the public may provide testimony also over the phone by calling 888-475-4499 and entering the meeting ID 876-6265-7673. So we will start here in Carson City. Whoever would like to go first, you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kayla Maese, spelled Kaylahmaese. I'm a civil rights analyst with the ACLU of Nevada, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Next person.
Thank you, Chair Mosca. Members of the committee, Warren Hardy, W-A-R-R-E-N, last name Hardy, H-A-R-D-Y. I'm really pleased to be here today to support this. I served in this body as a member of the Assembly in 1991, and again as a member of the Senate from 2003 to 2009. And I'm here today sort of to speak in favor of AJR 7, but I'm here really to speak in favor of citizen legislatures, which AJR 7 directly addresses. During my time in the Senate, I served with Assembly and Senate. I served with farmers, business owners, retirees, ranchers, teachers, lawyers, doctors, dentists, a bar owner, mechanic, a veterinarian. And the one thing I'm unanimous on my experience here is that the citizens' legislature is worth protecting at all costs. I'm one of those legislators that left a term on the table. I left early during the economic downturn of 2009 because I had to take a pay cut at home and couldn't afford to feed my family and serve in the legislature at the same time. Not that was probably a good thing for the people in Nevada that I had to leave, but having somebody have to make that decision does not serve this state well. We need to fix the problem. I made $7,500 a session, just like the people that did 30 years before me, and just like you are. That's a travesty. People. I know most of you very, very well. You're not here for the money. You're serving because it's the right thing to do, but it shouldn't be a burden on you or your family. So let's ask the voters what they think, and let's make our case to the voters. I am 150% in favor of this legislation. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tom Clark. That's Tomclark. I'm here on behalf of every client that I have. I don't have to ask them for permission to come forward on this particular piece. And I brought props that those of you in the front row can see. Mr. Hardy and I served together in 1991. The difference was I was a legislative page at a time before there were cell phones and email. In fact, when I guest lecture at universities, I tell the students if I had a nickname back then, it would have been text, because my job was my beeper, you guys can Google that, would go off. And I would run to the legal division and they would hand me a bill with a pen and a written note. And I would run back over here, because they were over in this headway. I would run back over here, hit all 3 floors, because this building was only 3 floors back then. Find the legislator, hand them the bill, wait for the response, run it back. I tell that story simply because in 1991, I was not a salaried employee. I was paid by the hour. And I used to brag with Mr. Hardy, Mr. Goldwater's here too, Dean Heller, others, that I was making 3 times the money they were making every single day. At the end of the legislative session, we didn't have 120 days, right? So Kim Morgan, bless her heart, who was in your Hall of Fame, she was my mentor. She started me on January 1. Because we knew we'd get to July 1, and I would get paid all my sick pay, all my health benefits, and my retirement contribution that was made by the state because I was vested after 6 months. My last and final paycheck for a 19-year-old kid was phenomenal. But it was 7 to 8 times what they made as legislators. Fast forward to 2025. Your pay has not changed. That 19-year-old kid still made 7 to 8 times the amount of money that you make as legislators. That's a travesty. In 1994, I served in 1991 and 1993, then with the
Sorry,
advent
Mr.
of
Clark,
technology.
you are at 2 minutes, but I appreciate it. Next, please.
Please
Thank
support
you.
this legislation, darn it. Thank you.
All right, Ross Kinson, ROSSKINSON. I'm here on behalf of the AFL-CIO, Vice President of the AFL-CIO, and President of the Northern Nevada Central Labor Council. So clearly, we are very much on board with AJR 7. At its core, right, it's a bill that allows transparency and fairness across the board. It creates a balanced commission that does include labor and does include the business, which means that there will be open conversation, and it will allow for this commission to advocate essentially on behalf of all of you. I think that many of the things that have been stated, both by Assemblymember Watts and by the previous 2 gentlemen that were up here before me, I ditto those, but from where we sit, this is a very, very important bill or resolution, and so we are in full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mosca. David Goldwater, DAVID I'm here today representing the Nevada Mining Association. The association stands in full support for 2 very important reasons, among the others stated by the previous speakers. One is, for some reason, the Citizens Legislature is one of the only places where we don't correlate pay with the quality of human being that will be attracted to it. And at least by some measure, that is, this is a job that should be correlated with the amount of money you make, or at least the sacrifice of money that you have to make, and we should unburden you of that sacrifice, or unburden future legislators of that sacrifice. 2 is the structure that Assemblyman Watts has wisely put in place mirrors the corporate structure on how they consider compensation. At board levels, corporations that are governed by boards of directors have compensation committees that are made up of different people, and they take different data points and come up with compensation recommendations for their upper management systems, or upper management structures. So that's something to consider as well. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca and Assembly members. For the record, my name is Ryan Vortish. That's R-Y-A-N, last name V-O-R-T-I-S-C-H. I'm the Northern Nevada Democracy Coordinator of Silver State Voices. I'm here to testify in strong support of AJR 7 on behalf of my organization and the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. The creation of a Citizens Commission on compensation for certain elected officers is a step forward to ensure our elected officials receive fair pay for their work. We appreciate the transparent decision-making process outlined in the bill, as well as the diverse membership requirements for the proposed committee. Ultimately, our elected officers should not be responsible for choosing their own pay, as this creates reasonable doubt about the integrity and objectivity of this process. The creation of this commission ensures an unbiased, diverse board full of institutional knowledge is at the forefront of these conversations, and that members of the public are invited to the table when decisions are made about how their tax dollars are spent in the Silver State. We'd like to thank Assembly members Howard Watts, Erica Mosca, and Brian Hibbets, as well as Senators Rochelle Wynn and Jeff Stone for sponsoring this bill. We hope you'll join us in supporting AJR 7. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Chair Mosca and the board. My name is Andrew Rivas. For the record, ANDREWRIVAS. I am a political organizer for Teamsters Local 533. In the sake of saving time, I will just echo what my colleague in labor already said. This is a very forward-thinking and transparent process that we support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mosca, members of the committee. My name is Eric Chang, ERICJENG, Executive Director of One API Nevada, advocating for the fast-growing Asian American community, and also someone that has been doing recruitment work from our community to run for office and answer the call to public service. However, as many of you all know, the sacrifices, the trade-offs, that every day this goes into work. This goes into economic justice. This goes into having our elected official just a little bit better, just fairly compensated to continue to attract and retain qualified individuals who can effectively address the unique rising challenges. And again, we urge your support for this joint resolution. And lastly, thank you all for your services and sacrifices. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrew Clark. I'm here on behalf of New Day Nevada, that is CLARKE, unlike the county. We support this bill because it opens the door for more hardworking Nevadans to serve the communities that they know best. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera-Georgeson, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Nevada Conservation League. Here at NCL, we understand that we can't...
Can you spell your name for the record?
Yep, it's a weird one, too. CHRISTICABRERAGEORGESON. Here at NCL, we understand that we can't have a healthy environment without a healthy democracy, so we'd like to echo all of the comments previously made and urge the committee's support. Thank you.
Seeing no one else in Carson City, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to testify in support? Not seeing anyone come to the table, we will go AVH to the phone lines, please, for those wishing to testify in support.
To testify in support of AJR 7, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 733, please press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Chair Mosca, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Amber Joyner, AMBERJOINER. I apologize I'm not there in person as I'd hoped to be, but I'm ill and I don't want to share this bug with you. I'm testifying today in support of AJR 7, and I'm here on behalf of myself only, not representing any organizations that I'm associated with. I represented Assembly District 24 for 2 terms between 2014 and 2018, and when I decided not to run again for a 3rd term, I was very public about one of the main reasons, and that was because it was just financially unsustainable to continue to serve. The salary and health insurance compensation for legislators needs to be examined, and a fair level needs to be decided by an independent entity. I support AJR 7 because it provides for that. Most people don't realize that we legislators are not provided subsidized health insurance like state employees. While I was a legislator, I paid an average of $1,200 per month for health insurance for my family. When I added up all of my salary and per diem, everything I was paid as a legislator, it was not even enough to cover my health insurance premiums. I was actually losing more than $2,000 per year just to cover those premiums, which meant that all of my time as a legislator was completely uncompensated. This commission on AGR 7 could also examine the antiquated model of only compensating legislators for half of the legislative session every 2 years. As I'm sure you all experience, technologies such as email and cell phones have increased the public's interaction with their legislators to year round, which is fantastic for representation, but it has increased the workload to often more than full time for legislators who want to do a good job and be responsive. Also, much of the research and preparation for legislation takes place during the 20-month interim between sessions, which is completely unpaid. During the interim, I remember serving on as many as 8 public committees in my role as a legislator. I often traveled to Las Vegas. They were typically all-day-long meetings, and that meant that I just could not find a full-time job with health benefits that was not either a conflict of interest or a conflict of schedule. If we truly want a citizen legislature where people from all walks of life can serve, the current compensation model just does not work. Very few people can go unpaid for 22 months at a time without health insurance. Additionally, city and county elected representatives do often have salaries and health insurance at a reasonable level, which makes the legislature a stepping stone to those local offices, which of course is completely backwards. So for all of these reasons, I encourage you to please pass AGR 7 so that we can have an independent commission look at these issues and modernize our public official compensation system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good evening, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of AJR 7. My name is Paula Luna, that's Paula-Luna, and I'm the Deputy Director of Battleborn Progress. I urge you to support the resolution to create a Citizens Commission on compensation for certain elected officers. Currently, elected officials influence their own salaries, creating a conflict of interest. By establishing an independent commission, AJR 7 ensures that compensation decisions are fair, data-driven, and shielded from political influence. A structured, impartial process will help maintain competitive and reasonable salaries, ensuring public service remains accessible to all Nevadans, not just those who can afford it. This resolution also enhances transparency and public trust. When salaries are set through an open and independent process, Nevadans can be confident that decisions are being made to the best interest of the state, not individual lawmakers. Other states have successfully adopted similar models, and Nevada should do the same. I urge the committee to advance AJR 7 and take this important step towards good governance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, we have no additional callers in support at this time.
Thank you so much. We will now move to opposition. So if you're here to testify in opposition to AJR 7, please fill in the tables in Carson City as well as Las Vegas, and the phone lines will be the same number. So when you are ready to begin, you may start.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I want to thank Assemblyman Watts for bringing this forward. I am totally in favor of the legislators making more money. I have felt
I'm
this
sorry,
way.
You had to state your name
Oh,
and spell
that's
for the
right.
record. Thank
Janine
you.
Hansen, State Chairman of the Independent American Party. I'm been very passionate about this for many years. I've always felt the legislators need to make more money. And I think that one of the reasons is because it helps to maintain a citizen legislature. I think this is critical because there's a lot of people, as we've heard today, that can't serve if there isn't enough compensation. And it's getting less every year, especially with inflation that's gone on. So I think it's more and more difficult. But I did want to mention that after I listened to Assemblyman Watts, this couldn't possibly happen until 2030. And you could pass a bill right now to raise the pay for the legislators and say it wouldn't go into effect until 2030. And in that way, it would be more possible that it would go into effect because the public might vote no, and then you'd have to start all over again. And so if you consider that, if you don't do it and if it raises it in 2030, that would give you 3 elections before that happens. And so a lot of that fervor that people might have of you raising your own pay would be gone by then. And so I think that a more sure way to raise your pay is to do it yourselves and let it go out at a future time. We really do support you having increased pay. I think it's critical to maintain the citizen legislature. But I think doing it this other way, it might not even happen. And so you might consider doing it another way. Thank you very much. And it's time for you to get a raise. Oh, by the way, I raise all the money so that I can be here. And that's the way I'm here as a volunteer, that I raise my own money to pay my own way to be here. Nobody pays me to do it.
Thank you. Anybody else here in Carson City? Anybody in Las Vegas for opposition? AVH, let's go to the phone lines, please.
To testify in opposition of AJR 7, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon. This is Oscar Williams again, OSCARWILIAMS from Reno. Let me cut to the chase on this one. Why not create an advisory board? You do it now, do it quick, and then put in there a mandate that the legislature has to accept and vote on the recommendations of the board during each session. That way you get around this constitutional amendment stuff. I don't like the constitutional amendment, and there's really no need for it. But overall, I realize that the constitutional amendment is not going to have all the answers. It begs further legislation and regulation, and that's partly what scares me. I see how that works in these committees. You create the bill of laws, and then later on we find out what really happened, and we are often disappointed. This particular bill, AJR 7, creates a concentration of power in the governor. He has a chance to appoint a biased board. There's no balance of party. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, that's not even in the language here, and it should be, very much so. It lacks checks and balances, or the checks and balances are to be determined. So like I said, future laws to be made based on this. And it's just a bunch of bureaucratic red tape. And I suggest that you don't pass this. Go for the advisory board with the mandate, as I suggested. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, we have no additional callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. And lastly, we'll move to neutral. Anyone in neutral here in Carson City? We will go down to Las Vegas. Anyone in neutral? And finally, AVH, anyone on the phone lines for neutral?
To testify in neutral for AJR 7, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Assemblymember Watts, would you like to make a closing statement?
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Again, for the record, Howard Watts. First, I'll just say it's delightful that you can always be surprised no matter how many terms you serve in the legislature. And so far, I have had Ms. Chapman be very supportive of one of the bills that I've brought forward. And now I think is the first time that I've ever had Ms. Hansen say that one of my pieces of legislation does not go far enough.
I did support your egg bill.
Yes, and I appreciate it. I really appreciate all the support that came forward and all the questions. One thing I just wanted to mention, we've heard a lot, and a lot about this has been kind of focused on the legislative perspective. But I would like to direct the committee's attention. I believe it was submitted and should be available online. That we also have the perspective of a constitutional officer. President Sandoval, former governor, did submit a letter in support of this effort, and as both a former legislator and a former governor. So I just wanted to direct the committee and public's attention to that, and again, note that it includes not just legislators, but also those constitutional officers, and we did have some support brought forward by a former constitutional officer. So We'll work on some of these tweaks and work on including some additional co-sponsors as a part of that. I really appreciate your time, your consideration, and your thoughtful questions, and hope that you'll support AJR 7. Thank you.
Thank you, Assembly Member, and we will now close the hearing on AJR 7. With that, committee, we are to our last item on the agenda. We will move to public comment. Each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Written public comment may also be submitted to the committee up to 24 hours after the meeting. I will remind everyone of the call-in number and meeting ID for those wishing to provide public comment over the phone, as anyone here can move up to the tables as well as in Las Vegas. That number is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 876-6265-7673. We will start here in Carson City. Seeing none, we will move to Las Vegas. And seeing none, we will move to the phone lines, please, AVH.
To provide public comment, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Well, thank you so much. I want to again thank Vice Chair Gonzalez for chairing the first part of the meeting, as well as Assembly Member Miller, the former chair of this committee. Thank you so much, committee members, for your great discussion and questions today. And our next meeting will be on Tuesday, March 4th at 4 p.m. Seeing no further business before us, this meeting is now adjourned.